So hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today's video, we are back in Pet Hospital, but this time we are doing something a little bit crazy because we are going to try and survive 10 shifts in Pet Hospital completely alone. No friends helping me to spot anomalies, no one reminding me which room has changed, no backup whatsoever. It's literally just me against this cursed hospital. The challenge today is just simple: to survive all 10 shifts without getting fined. Honestly, I don't even know if 10 shifts is possible solo, but we're about to find out. So if you're excited, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new here, and comment down below how many shifts you have survived in Pet Hospital. So without any further ado, let's hop right into the video. So Shift 1 was not really anything special for me since this was not the first time I'm playing the game. At this point, I already know the basics, so this shift was more of a warm-up and a chance to get my brain ready for the chaos that's about to happen later on. We only had 2 patients to take care of, so I was just doing the usual tasks and trying to remember every single detail in the hospital, because in games like this, your memory is your biggest weapon. And even though there were not any anomaly patients yet, I was already looking around and mentally taking notes of where everything was, because I know I'm going to need that information once the game starts messing with me. And after treating both patients, the shift was pretty much over. Then the doctor suddenly appeared and gave us the warning, and honestly every single time I replay this game, this part still gives me that creepy feeling. He started talking about strange things happening in the hospital and then mentioned that he had fixed the shutters and the security cameras. Like, why does a pet hospital even needed reinforced shutters and surveillance cameras in the first place? It's one of those details that seems small at first, but the more you think about it, the more suspicious it becomes. So to me, this moment is basically the game telling us to enjoy the peace while it lasts, because things are about to go very, very wrong. Nothing scary happened during Shift 1, nobody looked weird, and there were not any anomalies to report yet, but the atmosphere completely changed after that warning. The hospital suddenly did not feel as safe anymore. It felt like we were being prepared for something, and knowing this game, whatever is coming next definitely is not going to be normal. So moving on to Shift 2, things were still pretty normal. This is usually the part where the game slowly introduces you to anomalies without completely overwhelming you yet. We finally started getting a few anomaly patients, but honestly they were still really easy to spot, nothing too crazy or difficult. So if you've played Pet Hospital enough times, you kind of develop a routine already. I always make sure to look at the patient's photo first before doing anything else, and then constantly check the security cameras, because those two things alone can save you from missing so many anomalies. A lot of people panic, just start running around the hospital, but honestly, the cameras are your best friend in the game. Anomalies during this shift were a lot pretty straightforward, so I was not really struggling yet. I was feeling confident and thought, okay, maybe surviving 10 shifts alone won't be that hard after all, but I know this game way too well to trust it. Whenever the early shifts feel easy, it's usually because the game is setting you up for the absolute chaos that's coming later. Then by the end of the shift, something new happened. The facility shop finally opened, and of course, the very first thing I bought was the Run Cola. If I'm going to survive 10 shifts by myself, I need all the speed I can get. Running faster means I can check rooms quicker, reach patients sooner, and respond to anomalies before they become a problem. So Shift 2 was another success, a few anomalies, no major problems, and now we're finally officially upgraded with some extra speed. The real challenge though, that's probably about to start in the next shift. Shift 3 honestly still felt pretty similar to the previous one. The anomalies were starting to appear more often, but they still were not anything too difficult to deal with. Everything was going smoothly and I was starting to feel a little too comfortable, which is honestly dangerous in this game, because the moment you let your guard down, that's when everything goes wrong. But the biggest thing that happened during this shift was not actually an anomaly, it was our first encounter with someone mysterious. So out of nowhere, this rat suddenly showed up, but instead of introducing himself, his name just appeared as question mark. Right away, it was obvious that he did not trust us yet. He seemed nervous, secretive, and like he knew something that we did not. Since I've played through the game before, I already know that this is our first meeting with Rat U, but from the perspective of the story, we're basically meeting a complete stranger who clearly has some important information about the hospital. After that little encounter, it was back to business as usual. We treated more patients and continued serving the first shift. But then we unlocked 2 really important items the tasers, and the fire extinguishers. And honestly, this is actually where the game starts getting more interesting because these are not just random tools. The moment the game gives you weapons and emergency equipments, you know that future shifts are going to be way dangerous than the ones we've had so far. So while Shift 3 itself was not too difficult, it definitely felt like a turning point. We met this mysterious rat who does not trust us yet, and we suddenly gained access to equipment that makes me think that the hospital is hiding way more than we originally thought. The game is slowly building up the mystery, and I have a feeling that things are about to get a lot crazier from here. So Shift 4 started when I am buying the 10% NPC speed, and this was actually where things started getting a lot more interesting because the story finally began moving forward. First of all, our mysterious little rat finally decided that maybe we're not that bad because he officially introduced himself as Rat U. So no more question marks, we finally have a name, and even though he still seems a little suspicious and clearly knows more about the hospital than he's telling us, it feels like he's slowly also starting to trust us. Every time Ratu appears, I immediately pay attention because you already know something important is about to happen. But honestly, the real star of this shift was Barney. If you've played Pet Hospital before, you know that Barney basically becomes the main focus of the story for the next few shifts. And our first interaction with him, he literally just asked for coffee. Out of all the crazy things happening in the hospital, this guy is so worried about getting his coffee. Of course, I gave it to him because I'm not about to upset one of the main characters of the story. Plus, I was curious to see where this whole Barney storyline was going. So gameplay wise, this shift definitely stepped things up. We started getting patients that were literally on fire, which immediately made the hospital feel way more chaotic. Suddenly the fire extinguisher we unlocked last shift actually had a purpose. It's one thing to deal with weird anomalies, but it's another thing entirely when your patients are actively burning and running around the hospital. And that's not all, we also unlocked surgeries and ECGs, which means treating patients is not just about giving them medications anymore. The game starts adding more and more responsibilities, and you really begin to feel like you're working in a hectic hospital. You are checking for anomalies, running to patients, putting out fires, doing surgeries, and reading ECGs all at the same time. It's starting to become a lot to manage, especially since I'm doing this challenge completely alone. By the end of Shift 4, I could already tell that the game was slowly increasing the pressure. The story is getting deeper with Rachu and Barney. The patients are becoming more difficult to handle, and the hospital itself feels more chaotic than ever. If this is only Shift 4, I don't even want to imagine what the later shifts are going to look like. Shift 5 was honestly one of the craziest shifts so far, and the game wasted absolutely no time throwing me into complete chaos. The shift literally started with the doctor barging into the hospital, screaming and panicking. Right away, he warned us that there had been a huge anomaly attack and that we needed to prepare because an ambulance was coming. The moment he said that, I already knew this shift was going to be a disaster. As soon as the ambulance arrived, 6 patients came in all at once, and I was immediately stressed because I had no idea who I was supposed to help first. The first patient, or there was actually patients who are literally on fire, another patient who had fainted, and several others who were running around and panicking. Since I'm doing this challenge completely alone, there was nobody helping me prioritize patients or handle the chaos. I was running from room to room trying to decide who was the most urgent, and honestly my brain just stopped functioning for a second. Then, to make things even worse, we experienced our first patient death at the hospital, and that moment actually caught me off guard. Up until now, the game had been stressful, sure, but seeing a patient actually die made the situation feel so much more serious. Before I could even process what happened, someone in the hospital suddenly started a death ritual. At that point, I was genuinely losing my mind because how am I supposed to deal with burning patients, unconscious patients, panicking patients, and now some creepy ritual happening in the middle of the hospital. This entire shift felt like the game was testing whether I could handle pressure or not. There was barely any time to think because something was always happening. Every time I finished helping one patient, another emergency would pop up immediately. Thankfully, after somehow surviving all of that chaos, the doctor rewarded us for making it through the shift. But instead of making me feel relieved, he immediately gave another warning. He basically told us that this was only the beginning and that many more ambulances would be arriving in the future. And honestly, that warning scared me more than the shift itself. Because if this was only the first massive ambulance event, I don't even want to know what the later shifts are going to throw at me. Shift 6 was honestly a lot calmer compared to the complete disaster that happened during Shift 5. There were not any massive ambulance attack or huge emergencies this time, so I finally had the chance to breathe a little. Even though the shift itself was more normal, the story definitely kept moving forward. We finally got to meet Ron from accounting, which was really an interesting guy because if you've been paying attention to the lore, you know this guy somehow knows way more about the hospital than he lets on. Then of course Barney showed up again because apparently this man cannot survive one shift without needing my help. First he asked for another cup of coffee, which at this point does not even surprise me anymore. Then things got even weirder because he suddenly asked me to take a photo of him. I was already confused, but right after all that he asked if he could hide with me, and honestly that entire interaction made me feel like something bad is happening behind the scenes. Barney seems really nervous lately and it feels like he's scared of someone or something inside the hospital. Then he asked me to hide the briefcase for him, so now I'm taking photos, bringing coffee, hiding briefcase, and hiding with Barney on top of doing my actual job as a doctor. I swear at this point I'm doing more side quests than treating patients, but gameplay wise guys, this shift was not necessarily difficult, but it took me forever to finish because there were so many patients. The hospital is getting busier and busier with every shift. I was constantly running around, treating patients, doing surgeries, and making sure I was not missing any anomalies in between. Since I am doing this challenge completely alone, there was not anybody to help me manage everything, so I had to prioritize every task myself. And honestly, that's what made Shift 6 stressful, not because there was one huge event happening, but because there were just so many responsibilities piling up at the same time. The game is slowly reaching that point where multitasking becomes the real challenge. By the end of the shift, I could not stop thinking about Barney. Why does he suddenly need a picture? Why is he hiding? What's inside that briefcase? And why does it feel like everyone in the hospital is keeping secrets from us? Shift 6 may have been calmer than the previous one, but story-wise, it definitely felt like something big is being set up for the next few shifts. So compared to the last few shifts, Shift 7 was actually pretty normal, no giant ambulance attack, and thankfully nobody suddenly started a death ritual in the middle of the hospital this time. It honestly felt like the game was giving me a small break before throwing another disaster at me later on. The biggest thing that happened during this shift was Barney. He finally came back and thanked me for everything, especially for giving him the coffee earlier. Honestly, it was such a small interaction, but it made me laugh because after all the chaos we've been through, this guy is still thinking about his coffee. At least he appreciated it. It was actually kind of wholesome seeing him thank us after spending the last few shifts helping him hide, taking his picture, and basically becoming his personal assistant. Gameplay-wise though, the hospital definitely is not slowing down anymore. Even if nothing major happened, story-wise, there were still a lot of patients to take care of. I was constantly running around, treating animals, and making sure I was not missing any anomalies along the way. At this point, I'm already in a routine, but since I'm doing this challenge completely alone, even a normal shift can still feel stressful because everything depends on me. Honestly, Shift 7 felt like one of those calm moments in a horror game where everything suddenly becomes quiet and that somehow makes you even more nervous. The story with Barney seems to be temporarily resolved for now. He finally got his coffee and said thank you, but I have a feeling the game is not done with surprising us yet. We're already 7 shifts in and somehow I'm still surviving, but the real question is how much longer is this piece going to last? Shift 8 was honestly one of the biggest plot twists so far. The shift itself started pretty normal and then out of nowhere an officer came up to me and basically dropped a huge bombshell. He told me that Barney was actually a murderer and not only that but he was actually also an anomaly. I was genuinely sitting there like what? Because for the past few shifts I've been helping this guy, giving him coffee, taking pictures of him, hiding his briefcase and even hiding with him, and now you're telling me that he's a murderer? The officer then gave me a choice to turn Barney in or don't. Apparently, if you decide to betray him, he eventually attacks you. But honestly, after everything we've been through, I could not bring myself to turn him in. So I decided to trust Barney one last time. And honestly, it's actually the best decision ever that you'll ever made inside the game. So instead of attacking me, Barney thanked me, helping him all this time and gave me another coffee machine as a reward. Thank goodness, because let me tell you, my sanity was already disappearing from giving this man coffee every 5 minutes. Now I finally had another machine to make coffee to increase my sanity. But then came the sad part. Barney basically said goodbye after all those shifts of helping him and seeing him constantly show up around the hospital. It honestly felt weird seeing the story come to an end. And just when I thought the shift was over, the game immediately started setting up the next storyline. Because right after Barney's goodbye, the focus shifted to Ratu. We've known since the beginning that Ratu is hiding something. He clearly knows secrets about the hospital, he's always acting suspicious, and there are so many unanswered questions surrounding him. So the moment his story started, I immediately knew that these things were about to get a lot more serious. Shift 8 may not have been the most chaotic gameplay-wise, but in terms of the lore, this shift was absolutely huge. Barney's story came to an end, we got one of the biggest plot twists in the game, and now we're actually officially stepping into the mystery surrounding Ratu. And honestly, I have a feeling things are only getting to get darker from here. Shift 9 was actually a pretty normal shift gameplay-wise, especially compared to the absolute chaos we had a few shifts ago. There were not any huge emergencies or massive ambulance attack this time, so I could focus more on treating patients and paying attention to the story. By this point, the hospital is already busy, so even a normal shift still has me running around doing surgeries, checking ECGs, spotting anomalies, and making sure nobody suddenly catches on fire. Story-wise though, this shift was really important because we got to see Ron from accounting again, and it honestly feels like every single character in this game somehow knows more than they're telling us. Nothing major happened with Ron during this shift, but his appearance definitely made it feel like something bigger was setting up. And that's exactly what Shift 9 is, a setup for Ratu's story. After Barney's chapter finally ended, the spotlight completely shifted toward Ratu. The game keeps dropping hints that he's hiding something important and that he's been investigating the mysteries of the hospital for a very long time. The more I interact with him, the more curious I become because this little rat clearly knows things that nobody else does. This shift really felt like the beginning of a new chapter. It's almost like the game is saying, okay, the Barney storyline is now over, now it's time to uncover the truth about this hospital. So while Shift 9 was not super crazy in terms of gameplay, it was really important lore shift. The hospital's still getting busier, Ron from accounting is still lurking around, and now all signs are pointing towards Ratu and whatever secret he's about to reveal. And honestly, I have a feeling that Shift 10 is where things are finally going to get serious. And then we finally made it to Shift 10, and honestly this is where everything completely fell apart. Just when I thought I was getting the hang of things, another ambulance attack happened. The moment I saw the ambulance arrive, I immediately got stressed because I already knew how chaotic these events could be. Patients started flooding into the hospital all at once and there were so many emergencies happening everywhere. One patient needed immediate treatment, another one was panicking, another needed surgery, and before I could even finish helping one animal, 3 more problems would suddenly appear. Since I was doing this challenge completely alone, there was nobody to help me prioritize or split the tasks, so it was literally just me running around the hospital, trying my best not to let everything collapse. But unfortunately guys, everything did collapse in this last shift. I became so overwhelmed that I started making mistakes. I could not even decide who needed help first. I kept running back and forth between patients, and before I knew it, the first animal died. I was already panicking at that point, but then a second animal died and then a third died. The moment that third death happened, I knew it was over. I had completely lost control of the hospital. Honestly, I was not even scared of the anomalies anymore. I was scared of my own inability to keep up with everything happening at once. This shift really showed me how difficult Pet Hospital becomes when you're playing solo, because it's not the anomalies that defeat you, it's the pressure and the overwhelming amount of responsibilities piling up at the same time. So unfortunately, my challenge ended here. I could not survive all 10 shifts in Pet Hospital alone, but honestly making it all the way to Shift 10 by myself is still pretty impressive considering everything the game threw at me. We survived multiple ambulance attacks, uncovered Barney's entire story, learned more about Ratu, met Ron from accounting, and somehow managed to keep the hospital running for this long before finally falling apart. Maybe next time I'll bring some friends, because after this experience I have so much respect for anyone who can survive the later shift completely alone. But who knows, maybe one day I'll come back and try to beat this challenge again. And that is where our journey ends. Unfortunately, I could not survive all 10 shifts in Pet Hospital alone. We made it all the way to Shift 10 and covered so much lore, started learning more about Ratu's story, and somehow survived multiple ambulance attacks before the hospital finally defeated me. Honestly, I did not expect this challenge to be this stressful. I thought the anomalies would be the scariest part, but in reality, it was trying to manage an entire hospital by myself that completely broke me. I definitely want to try this challenge again in the future because now I know what to expect, and maybe, just maybe, I can finally survive all 10 shifts, or maybe I should make things even worse and attempt 15 shifts alone next time. So let me guys know what you think in the comments because I genuinely want to hear your ideas. Should I retry this challenge solo, play with friends, or try another crazy challenge in Pet Hospital? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future Pet Hospital videos because we are getting closer and closer to uncovering all of the secrets hidden in this game. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!